This presentation demonstrates toxic leadership behaviors and how they are displayed in television shows such as The Walking Dead presented by AMC. Connections to psychology of leadership can be seen throughout the entirety of each character's appearance in The Walking Dead. Negan Smith serves as the role as the primary antagonist throughout seasons 6 to 8, while Dee, aka Alpha, takes the spotlight in season 9 through 10. Toxic leadership can best be described as a leader who exhibits a pattern of certain behaviors, such as cultivating antipathies between themselves and another group, imposing tyranny within their group, or someone who leads with manipulation and bellicosity. Some key concepts that can be seen are the contingency approach, in and out group dynamics, prototypicality, and social identity theory. The analysis of toxic leadership in the media is a substantially informative way of seeing exaggerated depictions of leadership. This lets viewers into the minds of these characters and their followers, giving them a grasp of concepts that can be hard to understand without the context provided. When it comes to prototypicality, I believe yes, these leaders both exhibit the same qualities as their followers, but more so, I believe their followers want to be like the leaders. When it comes to Alpha's leadership, she provides a perfect example on how leaders can help form an in-group and an out-group. She does this in many ways. One of her simplest is by her verbiage, by referring to her group and her collective, like using words like we and I. Another factor would be Alpha's wording when referring to other groups. She tries her best to create as much of a divide between those groups and her group as possible. Social identity theory can be seen in both groups, as when they become a member of the group, it becomes a part of them as an individual. An example would be Alpha's group and how they took on the identity of the zombies around them, and they use this ideology to fuel their group efforts. One pattern that I believe contributed to Negan's success, like Alpha as an influential leader, would be his use of the word we and we're. In his first appearance in the episode Last Day on Earth, he continuously refers to his actions and them as a collective with the word we, such as when he said, "Today was career day. We invested a lot so you could know who I am and what I can do." In addition, the contingency approach is exhibited within both groups. The contingency approach is when an individual is found to be the perfect match for the group/scenario that they're in. For example, with Negan, he was a member of the group Saviors before taking the group over. He, before the apocalypse, was even a rather harsh person. So when put in this position where he was able to gain power, he was able to benefit from being rather violent. The actress who played Alpha, Samantha Morton, when asked about Alpha's reasoning for her behavior in an interview with Sci-Fi Vision, she stated, "I do not believe that Alpha is evil. I think that when you're making a television show, you have to have an angle, the protagonist or the goodies or whatever. You know, who's the villain, who's the baddie, but it depends on the perspective that you're shooting it from. So I think Alpha, all the things that she did, she's at war. They're justified." Which I feel is a great way of describing her character's mentality, as the reasons for her actions are unknown and her belief system seems to flip quite often. On the other hand, you have Negan, who seems to reiterate his reasons for his actions, in addition, is given more of an in-depth backstory in the main series in which to help develop his character on. An interesting aspect between both of these leaders would be their use of the world around them. Negan and Alpha both came to power somewhat through a contingency approach. With a situational, unlike contingency approach, almost anyone could take on the leadership role, which I do not believe to be the case with these groups. Negan took the group from its previous leaders, as the group was not being managed in a way that satisfied him, as did Alpha, later convincing people that her way of life was superior. They did not just fall into their positions, they took them. Contingency approach would better be shown as these people who lead normal lives before the zombie apocalypse now are leaders of murderous cult-like groups. When doing this analysis, it gave me the chance to explore deeper into human desires and figure out what humans tend to crave when selecting leaders. Not only that, but it showed how people who are not described as good can still be effective leaders. To me, the finding of human desire when it comes to leader selection was one of the most interesting parts. Not only did people select leaders that they wanted to follow, but they also selected leaders that they wanted to embody. Another aspect I found fascinating would be group mentality, where members of a group become so indulged in their dynamic that they are no longer just themselves, but have taken on the group mentalities. In addition, when gathering information about their leader/follower dynamic, I became engrossed in learning what made followers eventually turn against their leaders, especially in The Walking Dead, where being in a group or not can mean life or death. So, seeing an individual risk leaving the protection of their group because they no longer value their leader gives a lot of context into the relationship involved. In regards to toxic leadership, there are more aspects than just trying to define how bad the leader is as a person. You have to take into account things such as their actions with their followers, their actions with non followers, their leadership as a whole, etc. By not only factoring one's opinion on the leader, but also the followers' mentality of them, one can get a more comprehensive understanding of the leader's leadership style. In addition, by studying a leader's body movement, language, eye contact, etc., one can get a better understanding of how the person in question really feels, instead of just going off of what they say. When it comes to analyzing toxic leadership in the real world, the researcher must take a step back from their position in the situation and view them from a different lens. Although this analysis is for fictional characters, there are still many real world implications to be remembered.